Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for yet another fantastic mentor chat that we bring. This one's really special to me because this mentor chat is with my Wonder Woman, Maybelyn Plecic. I miss laughing with her, I miss working with her, I miss being around her, and here we are. She's not just here for me, she's here for everyone. Thank you, Maybelyn, for coming here today. Uh, just to set the tone and the context, I want to introduce you, the amazing you, to everyone, and then we can proceed with our mentor chat today. Okay, so everyone, Maybelline is the breadwinner of a family of six with a very supporting and loving husband. Her family is a team. They have four boys, aged 17, 14, and twins who are 13 years old. One of their twins has low spectrum autism. They believe in doing their best to provide the most versatile, impactful, and fun life experiences for their family. Love requires patience, bravery to be honest, kind, and empathetic, having a growth mindset, and being willing to learn from your failures. They are stronger together, and I can vouch that for a strong pillar, Maybelline. She has been supporting the Lean and Wonder Woman for over 5 years. She also collaborates and works with multiple such support networks, including Women Who Code Python, The Star in Me, the Alpha, Girls Boss, National Organization Women, Women's March, and so many more. You can already see that she's a rock star. One of the greatest gifts of working with Regional Leaders Program is that they are driven, energetic, and inspiring leaders, and so is our Maybelline. She is honored to have completed one of the peer coaching circles, and she's had a great experience with them. And now she's working on bringing the circles with a group of 3 to 5 members on a monthly basis. Another great lean in circle that she supports is a Women of Color writing circle, where there are literary works and provide mutual support and guidance. One of her proudest achievements, even a proud moment for us, is when she became the first female distinguished engineer, typically awarded to less than 2% of people in her organization. She also received the Engineering Manager for the South in 2019. Earlier, in April 2019, she also received Cisco DevNet Creator in providing programmability automation for their women's study group and teams nationally across all engineering practices. Phew, Maybelline, you are an inspiration for so many, including me already. She's here today to talk to us on a topic that's called building resilience. She talks very often about these topics in her, podcast, Why to Me, and you should subscribe to it and hear more stuff from her. But today she's here exclusively for us, for the Star and Me community members. She has been actively associated with the Star and Me, and today she's here to talk about and lay the context and answer your questions on building resilience. Maybelline, over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rashmeet. And I definitely miss working with her. First time we met, we had a blast. We had a lot of fun selfies on the Lean In conference. It was definitely a great moment. We were also taking pics behind the, famous sports cars there that we wish we had, or we could take out the parking lot. So those are the fun things. We love fun and color, and definitely a Wonder Woman right here. I mean, you can see the background. We have Wonder Woman theme everywhere as much as we can. So we're building and conquering the world. That's our goal right now. Two quotes that I'd like to share for everyone that wants to know how I am and how I really live life, that I send in my emails constantly at work. The first quote is, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive, by Howard Thurman. The second favorite quote that I have is, success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you're doing or learning to do. From Pelé, he's a famous soccer player that many people respect. He was he had a great sportsmanship, and he played with many different countries in the world, and he was very respected for his talent. I love soccer too. I'm not just a fan, I love playing it. I used to play it when I was in middle school and high school, and one of my favorite sports that I will never forget. What does resilience mean? In a dictionary term, it means the capacity to recover quickly from difficult toughness. That's what life is about, right? We endure, we learn many things, we grow, and we encounter different life experiences, sometimes fun, sometimes not so much fun, but we're constantly growing every day, right? And just to define a little bit more, just want to give you context for myself. Who am I? I'm an enabler. I'm very curious. I care about people dearly and the world. I'm always keeping a watchful eye on the next steps that I take. So I'm always planning ahead, strategy like a chess game. So I have a plan A to Z. Contingency is my biggest thing, and that's why I'm able to endure a lot of the different circumstances, the hardships that I've seen. And I've been very privileged enough to meet amazing people like Rashmit and people around the world that share their stories of, competitiveness, the harshness in reality, and, authenticity. I love authenticity and honesty. I'm very straightforward, and many people know I'm a straight shooter, especially among men. You can't really speak out there without being outspoken. I'm not timid. I've learned not to be shy. I'm definitely an introvert, but I've worked very hard to be very front and center, because if you want to get something that you need, you have to be very vocal. Even if it's very hard, you can't give up. It takes every single person to voice out their opinion. And I think that builds resilience. It takes time. It's never easy to build resiliency because it's painful, right? Especially if you're a person that's very sensitive to emotions and what people do around you and your environment. You will take a lot of that into your body and your mind, and you observe a lot of that. So you have to create tactical ways of good habits to be able to endure some of those challenges. Do you want to add anything else, Rashmi, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, I mean, I have some points which I answered myself, and I think people want them to be answered too, because these are very difficult things about resilience. In today's situation, this pandemic situation that we are in, how do we work on thinking or building towards the future and accepting that this is the new normal? Because I think that's the first step of resilience, and most of us, including me, are not able to accept this. How do you proceed with this first step?
I think the first piece that you have to accept that is fact, right? We can't deny what's happening around us. We can't control everything that occurs day to day. You can only manage how we respond and how you interact with others. Think of it as minute by minute steps. I usually chunk time in 5 minutes. It's much easier to swallow. Take little steps at time to also to to really read how you're feeling and what you're thinking. Make the pausing steps, even if it's very quick milliseconds, right? Be open to change as best as you can, and just know that things will happen and occur. And even if you didn't exist today, things will continue to happen. I always think that this is my last day, right? What would I want to do and be remembered if this is my last day? So all you could do is control the first 24 hours that you can manage, 1 hour at a time. And then you appreciate it because you see the value of being present. And I know you've heard it before, and everybody has seen it before. Meditation, being grateful. I know Deepa has mentioned that quite a bit. Having gratitude gives you perspective, right? To understand that we are still better off. There are some people that are still worse off. If we can chat, remotely and be able to work remotely, we're still better off than some people that can't, right? So we have to be gracious about, honestly, our privilege, right? We have privilege, and we can take full advantage of that and be able to give to others, spread the positivity as best as you can. So it's really just taking yourself back to the present, noting the things that you have and being thankful, and journaling things, right? Write down things. You can't do everything yourself. Don't expect to be able to have an answer for every single encounter that you have. Know that there's many ways to solve a problem. Just like math can be solved in different problems, science also has proven it with more data. There's different theories that come in light, right? So nothing's ever permanent. So understand that there's no one solution, there is no one permanent answer. We have more to learn.
That makes sense. Going step by step, accepting things, and slowly moving on to that. It's so hard to get onto it. It's like we all want to live in a bubble of our own, I don't know, our own perceptions and images about things, but reality is quite different. You're right, we should approach it one at a time, 1 hour at a time, like you mentioned. We have a question here. It's personal. You can choose not to answer that. It's They want to ask your story as to when did you start your journey on building resilience, because it's almost like you start working on your muscles. What got you onto that? If you're comfortable sharing with that, it'll be great. Or some other examples of your friends and colleagues who started
Yeah, I
with
would
your
love
journey.
to. Definitely. I can easily share that because it's very personal and I'm proud of it. And I also want to make sure that you get the most out of me, right? I give my heart to everybody. That's how I am. I don't know any other way to share. So I would say I started out when I became aware when I was 8 years old, right? I was already very sensitive then. I used to cry a lot. I didn't know why. I was very sensitive, obviously. And I felt the world. I was definitely very curious at that point. I also saw how unfair it was for a girl to be treated. Visibly at 8 years old, I already realized that a girl was not okay. You had to be a boy. I was a very big tomboy. I loved tinkering with different things. And as I grew, like religion, especially, right? My family's Roman Catholic, but we never really practiced it. But there's reading between the line, you realize, especially when you're very curious, you see like, why do they act a certain way? Why do I have to wear a dress? I hated wearing a dress when I was a girl. We would have fights with my dad. I'm like, no, I want to wear shorts and pants. It's more comfortable because I love playing outdoors. I would play outside. I would play with the boys, jump over the fences. I would ride on a bike. It's not a typical girl thing, right? I love being in the mud, getting dirty. I was like looking at the gardens that we had. We would eat fresh tomato, from the garden. And we lived in Honduras before. And just to give everybody a context, I lived in different countries because my parents were in the United Nations. So I was able to experience third world countries, right? Seeing in a perspective of, seeing kids that were begging outside. So that's what proved to me that life can still be better. We're still better off. I remember, getting water from the well. I remember not having hot water and I had to shower with that in the Philippines when we were living there. So every 4 years we moved. So I was born in Papua New Guinea. My brother was born in South Africa. So we moved every 4 years because of my dad. That's also when I was 8 when I learned to type from the old school typewriter. So I would think as we moved around, I saw the different social classes and the caste systems, right? And that's how I've learned to be resilient. I had to learn languages very quickly. If I wanted to have a friend, I needed to learn how to speak the language. So I had to go to school, learn Spanish, learn Tagalog, learn the different cultures and customs. And I think that ingrained with me resilience. Whether I knew the word or not, I just fought and lived. That's what I define as my resilience, I think, where it started.
I think knowingly, unknowingly, you connected with so many dots for so many of us. Uh, I think you're right. It all starts when we're all young. When we are there in that zone and we're asking ourselves these questions. And that's probably one question that I would also like to ask. How, because young girls, they feel that this is a permanent situation, or maybe, even young people, it's not gender specific. Permanence, not being able to get out of the situation that you are in. It's a part of permanence is an important aspect of resilience. But how do you get that in your head, especially when you are the one who is in that situation and not somebody observing the situation from outside?
That's a tricky way of being, right? I've learned to be a watcher. I mean, I realized when I was younger that I love watching people. I was watching the environment, very observative, right? And I also enjoyed simple things like looking up at the stars, looking up at the horizon, and really just pausing time with my eyes, right? I had a lot of deja vus when I was growing up. That's how much time I felt like I was observing. So that I think taught me the permanence that you're mentioning, right? I was already meditating without realizing it. I was already learning on the fly quickly the discrepancies that adults give, because that's another thing that I think a lot of people underestimate, that kids are a lot more intelligent than they give them credit. At that time, I was already questioning why. And, not a lot of parents have patience to have a child ask why questions. I ask difficult questions. I would get in the middle of adult conversations. I'm like, why? Are you sure? Based on what I read, that's not the case. I also didn't help that I was reading a lot of books. My first novels were around that time. The Pearl was probably one of the oldest novels I read. That was my first novel. And I think I was hungry to live life, right? And that created my curiosity. And I think that kind of builds who I am today, but it took time, right? But I would say I didn't give up. I just kept asking and prying and creatively learned to speak in a tone that adults would eventually listen to. And sometimes they brush me off and they're like, oh, she's just that annoying little kid over there, just asking all the different questions, right? But I also learned to be silly and be goofy. You can say Dennis the Menace in the girl version. I was constantly getting into things. I didn't stop because stereotypes were around me. And of course, because I grew in so many countries, I think I crossed some of those barriers already. I was already outspoken because I was exposed so quickly in other cultures. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, are you sure this is the way I should speak or dress or act, or this is the tier of a family structure? So even in that time, I already thought I was an alien because I was very expressive. So hopefully that helped answer it. It's not a straightforward answer, but I'm just giving you my experience of how I think I've recovered and learned to be, I would say, resilient in general and persistent, not giving up, and at the same time finding joy and fun.
I like how you put it. I mean, to me, who struggle with similar, I think most of the young girls struggle with similar identity crisis, and the desire to be heard and still not being confident, and then trying to make your space into it. So I relate to those experiences, except for the beautiful point that makes you stand out. You being goofy and silly, and your pranks. I mean, we are famous for those, aren't we? And I've been constantly learning that from you, and I think there is no better time than right now. It's for it to be relevant, because we all need some laugh at the end of the day, and it's crazy. I want to pick on one thing that you said, that you kept on asking. Probably when we are kids, we ask questions, we ask for help more often because we
Mhm.
think we are expected to ask for help. But as we grow, and especially in these times, how difficult it is to ask for help, and how can one proceed with it? Because for me personally, also, it's a challenge expressing, hey, I'm feeling this way, especially in difficult times, knowing that everyone is going through something.
I would say don't apologize is the biggest thing, right? Allow yourself to be able to ask difficult questions. It takes bravery to ask those difficult questions. And and I would say be understanding that you might not always get the answer you want to hear, right? You need to listen to the different perspectives so that you have a way to cross examine. I speak of it like science almost, because it's all data. I'm such a geek that I always talk on that level, and I love science in general. But really break it down to simple ways that you can absorb, and don't think everybody's permanent. People change, right? And that's a lot of the times I've learned also is that we get tired of caring because we get hurt often. I'm never going to stop loving and getting hurt because you like to enjoy life, right? It's okay to feel the pain. That's what makes you feel alive to begin with, right? Enjoy it and ride that pain, because that pain is what makes you strong. That validates that you're alive and you can survive a lot of heavy things. And guess what I believe too is that in time you realize, like, you know what, the universe is giving me challenges because it knew I can handle it. So you need to figure out that and put that in your mind and say, you know what, I'm given this opportunity to somehow overcome it because it's a lesson that I've been given. It's a gift, right? Just like they said, our birthday is a gift, being present is a gift. Well, all the things that we endure is a gift of lessons. We just need to absorb them and say, you know what, I can handle it. If I can, then we work around it. It's like a wall effect. If I can't go through it, I'll go above it, below it, break the wall, right? But that means you need to be very strong and endure it and feel the emotion. It's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get mad, but make it productive. It's also okay to have a lot of fun. I focus on a lot of fun only because it's hard to learn anything if you're stressed, right? There's different stress levels. There's good stress or physical stress that we know for exercising, or really even in work when you're competing or anything competitive, multitasking. That's difficult stress. But then if you don't know how to reroute that or redirect it in a productive way, you get sick, right? Your physical and mind get sick, and then you can't function again.
Makes sense. I mean, now that you put it that way, it definitely makes a lot of sense. Difficult to follow, but you got to bring it in your habit, and that brings me to the next question that was asked. Uh, we know that it's important, but in daily life, what are some small practices that we can inculcate, especially in this quarantine time, so that it's a long way to go and start our journey of building resilience?
What I would say is understand your mindset. I've been talking about this book called The Mindset, that from Carol Dweck, and it tells you how you learn. Are you a non-learner or you're a learner? Meaning fixed mindset or growth mindset. If you can't figure out what your mindset, you can't really move forward and absorb anything else in life, whether it's suggestion, advice that I give you. You need to know how you understand concepts from everybody else. The other piece is get to know yourself more, right? You need to know who you are first. Write journals, for example. Don't be afraid to do guided journals or small ones that just give you a little sentence where it prompts you to ask questions just to reset you. Another one that I also use, I have a sunrise manifesto journal where it gives me 3, thankful ways. What are some things I'm thankful? What are some things that I plan to do? What could have made my last or yesterday better? What made me smile? What are some things that I want to focus on today? And then there's like a page where you could do a brain dump, which is kind of nice because I know people that are thinkers can't sleep also when they think too much. They're very consumed or excited, right? They can't go to bed. I've heard people that have have a hard time difficult sleeping. I don't. I'm usually exhausted by the time I finish because I'm busy doing so many things. Learn new things, develop new hobbies like singing, dancing, playing a new game, playing puzzles, do virtual fun like what we've been doing, goofing around Zoom or Cisco WebEx. Find creative ways that you can express yourself. Art is one of the best ways to do it. I love singing in karaoke for Smule. I play the bass. So even though I'm very much an engineering person, I still commit half of my time in fun. I keep saying the same word. And also make sure that you're willing to understand that no doesn't mean it stops there. No actually means opportunity for you to get a yes answer. So understand that you just need to ask the right questions to get a yes. But additional habits, obviously, meditation is one of them. You can meditate in different ways. I'm not going to tell you how exactly. There's different ways, guided or unguided. You can even meditate while riding a bicycle, while going around the neighborhood, right? Or even just be in a bath. I know that's when I have ideas. Usually when I'm about to go take a shower or take a bath, that seems to be when I need to write something. And write your thoughts. Have like a idea notebook that you can just write your thing. So this way you can test your creativity. And the other piece is love what you do and interact with people that keep you positive. Like Rashmi, we have regular interactions, right? We have weekly plans, more than that. And we get into adventures. We have side projects. Have a lot of fun with the rest of the people. Don't limit yourself to your area and expand your network. Talk to everybody. You never know who's going to respond back and say hello.
You know what? That does build up the context for the next question, but I mean, just to give an example of how amazing a person Maybelline is, for these Wonder Woman wings that you think that I have, guess who told me, who told me that this, you can change your virtual background Maybelline. So she told me about the Netflix plugin that one can use, and she said, we can watch things together. We get, and her idea notebook. Just so that everyone listening here, her idea notebook that she has, it's this huge. It's so huge, this thick. So Maybelline, you bring like this positivity even in these times of crisis, and I think that's really important. And I wanted to talk about this because community is one of our biggest support at the moment. Community is what brings us together. Community work is what brings you and I together. Community work is what brings you here. We have this platform, the Star and Me, wherein we can all connect, network, and hear people like you. So, as community leaders and community members, what are the small activities that we can take up, particularly in this time, to ensure that our loved ones are happy, even if we are not communicating too often with them? What are some small steps we can take as leaders and as members?
I would say self-care first, right? Because we're already overwhelmingly bombarded with a lot of responsibilities, whether it's work or trying to get employed or supporting families, and definitely caregiving for some, and having multiple children, and even more virtual learning for some of the students, right? If you have children, that's a difficult topic. For the elderly, even more difficult because they're not very savvy with technology, right? So I think a lot of it is every individual can give a moment of their time to show how things work, especially now where a lot of things are virtual. We need to be able to mentor and coach them how to use Zoom, like how to protect themselves security wise, right? How to display the right things and how to be heard, how to use what they have. I've been working with this other lady. She's doing Zumba classes, And I've been coaching her and support, basically technical support. I've been coaching her on how to share music via Zoom because she does Zumba, and then little things like that, like educating people. If you have, knowledge that you could share, that means a lot to somebody. Even if it's just a small thing, you wouldn't believe how helpful that is. And you can definitely build friendships that way. And it helps the community. So I would say anything small, doesn't matter. Just checking in with friends, checking in with WhatsApp, making sure you're still saying hello, chatting, like, how are you doing? Share a funny video just to give people a laugh. Again, I know a few people have shared videos. I've asked them to do that, especially in the rough times. I'm like, send me something funny. It's like, give me some music to listen to that's fun, or we could do a karaoke on Smule or karaoke on Smule itself, right? But really, a lot of this is encouraging people to still find a light in the dark, right? And hopefully, just shining that little light can spread. It spreads like wildfire. Once every single person counts, and if you could do a little bit, whatever you can offer, that's all that matters. Because we can't ask you to do too much when you're already burnt out yourself. So,
yeah, I think you said that part, like that stick with me, that we're already too burnt out, and sometimes we have to prioritize what needs to be focused on. It's a little difficult to draw those lines, particularly at this time wherein our work is intersecting with the family work. It's just like family being there is enough. We didn't mix those two worlds, and today they are all merging into each other. uh, since you have a kid in pretty much all the age groups, that's what I've always felt about you. How do you, I mean, because this is a question a lot of people have asked me, but they're scared or shy to ask that in public. So this is me asking on their behalf. How do you start bringing up, your kids with the idea of resilience? How do you explain the concept to them? And I think it's a pretty different exercise for pretty different age groups. So we'd love your experience on that.
a lot of the things I've done with my boys, especially, I've been honest with them, very direct, right? Because the kids have a lot of exposure to media, internet, especially the school, technology exposure. So I'm typically very honest because I don't want them to get confused of what I'm trying to explain. And interestingly, my kids, just to give them even more vulnerable things, they tend to ask me difficult questions when I'm in the bathroom of all times. So we have no sense of privacy. My kids have no shyness when it comes to that. We're pretty open about, their body and their mind and everything else. I usually, especially my teenagers, I'm very honest with them. We've done a whiteboard in finance with my 14-year-old. I think I explained that to him when he was 12, possibly. We did a 15-minute whiteboard on what is a full-time job, right? And how to calculate it, because he's very good at math. So I said, okay, what's a full-time job? What's a part-time job? We actually calculated what it is. And then we talked about tax, how much is taken out, how much Social Security is taken out, and then what it takes to feed, themselves. What does it cost to have an apartment if you wanted to go by yourself, get a cell phone, get a car, everything else. And then by the time the exercise finished, he goes, but that's not enough money. What do people do after, if they only have this much left? Well, that's why they have 2 jobs or 3 jobs, right? Or they have to educate themselves and reskill themselves to get more money, right? So you have to be honest with your kids. They really need to see that from the parents and be an example to it. I set an example by reading a lot. I do a lot. I also read to them quite a bit. I challenge them quite a bit. I also do karate. So I physically challenge them myself. I've wrestled with them. I have 4 boys. It's a little bit different. I don't know with the girls, but for us, it's physically rough. I take exercise seriously, and I also participate, right, with them. The key point is you have to be involved with your family. Despite how busy I am, every moment I have left, maybe a few hours before they go to bed, I find time to tickle them, to be silly with them and smush them. I know they're tired of me smushing their cheeks. I'm the worst, I'm like the paparazzi for them because I'm always taking pictures. I take embarrassing pictures sometimes, even with a face mask. I put a face mask on them also just so they know how it felt like. So to me, breaking the gender starts from home, even cooking, right? We taught them to cook. They can bake their own chicken themselves. They're 13-year-olds. They know how to put the seasoning, and we told them what the temperature is. So as you can see, it's all action. You let them experience it. And it doesn't have to be a perfect kitchen. Let them learn to cook, make a mess. That's part of life. Everything is messy. I used to be very sensitive to mess, but then when I had kids, I let go of all that.
I love it. I mean, this is really good. Even the people are commenting that this is such a great idea. I mean, I wish somebody taught me all of that when I was young. And this is such a brilliant way to inculcate, life lessons so early on in life. Just to build up on that, so now people like me, we've never had such conversations at home, and now we do, but probably when we were young and in formative years, that did not really happen. And now we are in the workplace, so this is like an additional project for us, building resilience or anything related to changing the thought process and the working style. So, I mean, and it gets a very secondary treatment. It's not like one of the primary priorities that we have. How do we bring that from it being like one of the less important things in our life to bring it in our mainstream activities? How can we focus on merging the two ways, especially when we're working in office or in communities? How do we merge and bring them together into our regular practice rather than it being something specific?
Well, first of all, don't think about it too hard, right? Don't add it again to another long list that's gonna get done tomorrow or in a few weeks. If you want to implement any habit, you have to do it right now. No better day than today, right? I have a long list of many things, but I always have at least the top three in the minimum so I could check it off. That's another way to be able to practice it, incorporate it, and also test. It's an experiment, just like you messing. When you were a kid, you were fumbling around, checking. I was literally tinkering, mixing things in the bathroom. I know my mom wasn't happy about that, but I was always tinkering and trying out things. Even my team is my experiment pool. They know it, and I've told them that. I'm their boss. I have 10 engineers that work under me, all male of all things, right? I don't have a single woman engineer in there, but it doesn't matter. I've given them the mother hen duck thing. I'm like the counselor. I'm like everything. And I've become a pseudo manager for many people, also even across our company, because all I'm trying to do is enable you. I want to remove the barriers, right? And to do that, that means I have to be ready and prepared to say what I'm going to say I'm going to do. I like to lead by example, and I like to get things done. I'm a very action oriented person, and you know that. I'm like, we have a list, we have a plan, very much plan oriented, but I'm also not discounting being spontaneous. I love being spontaneous. I've done a lot of spontaneous things where I've spoken to people that we just talk and we don't even know each other's names. I love those moments where you can just be yourself and, you know, by chance somehow you met some meaningful connection. And if it's me, and also too, if you're in my life, that means it's meant to be, right? I believe that we connect with people for a reason. Somebody needs you and they want you to be in their lives. They're putting time and effort to be part of your life. And I think that's a privilege to do so. It's also an honor to do that. But if you think in it that way, if you're always gracious about it and you just take life as it is, it's a lot easier to manage if you don't set too many high expectations, right? And don't over assume. If they haven't said it, it's not fact. Don't believe in just hearsay. Make sure you get to the root source, because that's my, as a manager, that's one of my more difficult challenges I face. Is like, are you sure that's what they said? You need to distinguish what was assumed versus actual. And then you can break out a lot of those misconceptions, because communication is, I think, one of the biggest challenges around the world. Is how do you navigate around those confusing, not realistic, and really unrealistic expectation. And I'm not really good to preach on that because I set myself high too much. I just do it. But to me, to be fair, a lot of the times people are always like, how could you do that, all that, right? And what I typically say is, I just do. If you've been given the position I'm in, you would also do something similar. Not exactly the same, but I think you'd also be successful and overcome it if you accept the fact that that is already something you have to live with. So I don't really think I'm that special. I just think that I'm just accepting it and moving on every day. That's what I do.
That does have a ring to it. And I was thinking that, since you're talking about putting yourself out there, pick up the top three things probably you want to work on that could help you, build more resilience. Um, And in this process, sometimes it is not taken well. There's backlash because people are not really on the same page as you are. How do you let go of these emotions and these setbacks, because you're already going out of your comfort zone and then somebody hits you back? How do you, deal with that? What are your thoughts on it, and any experience how you've handled with it in the past?
I would say I've learned it in different phases, right? Like you said, different phases of my life, there's different levels of maturity. I think in the early ages, I probably wouldn't be as patient as I am now. So it takes a lot of ways of understanding yourself and what you know is okay. You have to have a threshold. And that's what I keep telling a lot of people. Measure your threshold that you can tolerate. It's all about tolerance, especially relationships. Are you willing to put up with whatever it is? Because we're not 100% perfect, right? And I always put that in a context. I'm like, well, I'm not that all that, right? So somebody's putting up with me too, right? With my craziness and my madness. So I appreciate that I need to basically ground myself back and say, you know what? I can only do so much. I can compromise for a little bit. And life is challenging. There is no straight one answer for a lot of the ideas that we do, especially politically, where it's very harsh right now, right? And there is no perfect system. The only thing we could do is try to get towards it by collaborating more, take a step back. I also do internally make decisions of saying, okay, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm scared, I'm tired. You have to admit that and be okay to say, I'm not okay, right? And then find people you could trust to share that, to be vulnerable with. And I think that's the biggest. Be vulnerable and accept that those are some emotions you're experiencing. And then you can move on, because once you release that emotion, then you can think more productively or more practically, right? It's because you have to let the emotion ride. We can't deny our humanity. We have emotions. And I don't, from reading and research and experience, there's no such thing as just stopping your emotion. That's not effective. You need to address the emotion first. So this way you can decide to do what you need to do moving forward.
I'm glad you brought that up. You brought a very important aspect of building resilience, and that is vulnerability. And it's considered irrelevant, and especially with women. It's said that women are much more gullible, naive, ingenuous, all those adjectives that we have heard in our life. Uh, a lot of people don't understand this, and I really want them to do so. So I would want you to talk more about vulnerability as a tool and stepping stone for resilience, because a lot of people don't know about this, and a lot of women have been anti-taught about this, that you're not supposed to be vulnerable, you're not supposed to cry. So I want you to break that barrier. It'll have much more impact if you speak, if I do. So I want you to talk about that aspect.
Oh, yeah. I would say expression is one of the biggest reasons why I'm here, right? Especially in a man dominated field. I've never functioned like everybody else, like not like a man. My team and everybody else knows I'm very colorful. I laugh a lot. I will have a poker face as best as I can, but sometimes it slips and they see it in my face. And when I don't speak and they see it in my face, they laugh because, like, Maybelyn, what were you saying in that face? Even my clients catch me and they just laugh. I think laughter has been one of my best ammo for everything, like being clumsy and silly. And unfortunately, they think I'm cute, so you leverage that, right? Because I'm 5'1". Most of the guys are 6 feet tall. So I'm usually shrinking behind somebody's elbow, especially. And the funniest part, and you've heard me say it, they always think I'm 6 feet, 5 feet something, like 5'10". And I'm like, what does that have to do with my size? But they're like, well, you're like a big person that walks in, and when they see me, they're like, oh, you're that short. Like, I'm like, okay, so you take advantage of those differences. Is that's what I would suggest, right? Whatever those differences are, you take leverage, pull it up even more. If they notice your accessory, they notice your hair. I wear purple for a reason, just for fun. Change it up. It's a good conversation, right? Your goal is, especially women, be comfortable. You don't need to be stiff. You don't need to follow. Oh, I just gotta follow. Wear this color to make you confident. No, wear whatever you want that you think is comfortable for yourself, that makes you who you are. Nothing worse than having women go, oh, wear the same suit or wear the same high heel or this whatever funky corporate thing. That I'm not one to follow that. I never, you have to stand out. I mean, that's the key word here, especially when you're in the middle and you're the only woman in the room, which typically is for me. I mean, you should have seen maybe a couple of days ago, we had a manufacturer call and I was the only woman again in the room. And I'm like, and then it's funny. I'll give you on that tip on that conversation. They started talking about empathy. They started talking about capturing the user experience. This is the stuff that we're good at, women. You know, the ladies are good at this. And there was only one woman there, me. So, but again, you shine the way you want to shine, right? Whatever it is that makes you stand out is the key. Show your personality. Don't be afraid to show your bloom like a flower, right? Whatever you can visualize that makes you want to grow and be vibrant, what makes you happy. If you're not smiling and your cheeks are not turning red, you're not doing something you love, right? You can tell when somebody's doing what they love. They're expressing it physically and you can see it through the screens, everything. They can hear it in your voice. So please, whatever you do, figure out what you love doing. Once you got that part, nothing else matters. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, so I like how you put it. Nothing else matters because at the end of the day, we all face with these difficult situations. Could be any company, could be any community, could be a family. We all face all of this, and I think like you said, the only way out is if you love it, you will find a way. You wouldn't mind being vulnerable. You will find a way to build resilience. So yeah, that actually clicks a lot. um, we have Uma who's asking one more thing that she said the other day she read somewhere that one should be thankful for difficult situations and challenges, and since they help you build resilience. Do you agree with that? And how would you say that we use and leverage this opportunity? Because agree it or not, we have to make it an opportunity to survive. Otherwise, it's not going to be fun. So, what's your take on that?
I would say yes or no. It depends on your mental state, right? At that time, it's not really pretty. It's painful, especially a few people that I've been speaking to who have just lost a job or about to find out. That's not really a comfortable situation. It's not something to make you happy about, right? So I would say recognize that it's not a great event. It's painful. You need some time to, I would say, mourn, right? And yes, you'll be grateful after the fact. It's not always quick. Later on, when you have new opportunities, then you'll be thankful you had that bad problem occur or that challenge. So I would say you will be thankful eventually, but not right away because you're suffering at that stage, right? Whatever that challenge. I would say accept that and try as best as you can that, you're in this phase right now and you need help. That's the biggest thing. I think you need to ask and reach out to people at a minimum during that stage. You can be grateful later on. I don't think there's a specific time set on when to be grateful. And I don't think that you can be grateful right away, especially when you're in the middle of it. I can't really say that people should just be grateful up front because we're experiencing so many things. It's really difficult.
I I wasn't expecting that answer, when you said, but I'm surprised that makes so much sense. I wasn't quite accepting it because, yeah, it's kind of hard at the moment for some. I read it somewhere. Some leader mentioned out that even if we just survive through this time, we have already won. And sometimes in our conquest to do our best and make the best out of every situation, we burn out ourselves a little too much. I really thank you for saying no to that. So thank you so much. Um, this is the personal question about you. So there are a lot of leaders around us, and not just leaders, even celebrities around us, who bounce back after having so much going on in their lives. And worst part for them is it happens all in public for them. So anyone who you in particular admire the most for to have built resilience over time, and then as an example we could all follow and learn from.
I would say Marie Curie. If you've learned and read Marie Curie's biography herself, she's definitely an amazing lady. And she wasn't given enough credit, right? And I only point that out because, there's a lot of people we know that have cancer, right? Radiology came from that, you know, chemotherapy especially. And I wanted her to get kudos for that because her and her husband have suffered through a lot. Her husband actually died in a accident where somebody run him over. I mean, how depressing is that? And then her children also follow suit, including her daughter's husband also started getting into research. They also suffered, the radiation, researching. If you want people overcoming that, I mean, they kept going. They didn't stop. And I think she's a great example of how with having a belief, a strong one to help other people, that you can overcome a whole lot of things. And to be fair, a lot of people that are in that type of mindset, they're not stopping to begin with. They don't put any time to say, woe with me, sorry for myself, nothing like that. They've literally just focused on the target. And many of those people that are, you don't even realize, they're just focused on the destination. They're not looking back, maybe slightly, right, to reference for things, but they continue to just step forward, step by step. And that's all I do. I mean, just like you've done yourself, many of our leaders have done that. Just look forward, use the back as a reference, but don't stay there too long, right? Because you can't do anything from the past once it's done. You can only do anything today and maybe tomorrow. And even that is a short window. And that's why I focus so much on fun and doing pranks and finding joy wherever you can, is because life is short. I found, many people that suffered and are dying, or even a few friends that committed suicide, and that's never fun. I feel sorry, and I really feel bad for the ones that I couldn't reach out to, couldn't spend the time. I have many friends, even remotely, that I call occasionally that are very much, mentally unstable, right? Especially if they have different illnesses. It's very challenging for them to have somebody they can communicate to. But even when you do reach out, though, just do it in a certain dose that you can handle, because if you're sensitive to people, you pick up the negativity, the suffering yourself. And that's why I lean on you guys a lot, especially Rashmeet and quite a few. We have lots of laughs. I look to everybody that has something they can share that's meaningful to kind of lighten it up a little bit. I'm still serious, and I am. We're very serious. We're very committed to the feminist movement for sure. But I know that we can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
So we value that time.
I like how you said that, we can only do so much, and this is us doing our share, We are bringing conversations from people around the world to the women. I mean, there are a lot of questions that women generally want to ask and they don't. And sometimes you have to be their voice. Yeah, so I mean, this is what I love about the platform too, the Star Me. It gives us this opportunity, brings us on board, and gives us an opportunity to influence ours and the ones around us, their lives. Maybelline, just a closing question, and I think it will not be correct if I don't ask you that, because you mentioned 4 or 5 times some learnings from some books. So, as a closing note to our listeners, what books would you recommend to read during this time, and that can help
Oh
them
yeah,
build this?
I definitely had that ready because I'm a bookworm. Well, first, definitely Mindset, the new psychology of success by Carol Dweck, that talks about fixed mindsets and growth mindset, right? Start there first and take advantage of it. Sit in there and see how it applies from how you were growing up, how you treat your children, how you treat your family and friends. This is a very good Bible for that. And then once you get through that part, the Wealthy Gardener, Life Lessons on Prosperity Between Father and Son by John Soferick, and we can definitely share that. I like this one because it's written like a novel, right? It's a fable. It has quotes in there. He meant it to be for his son, but really it was for everybody. It's all about financial freedom, how to execute and do impact hour, where you meditate, you make time every day to meditate, to do healthy things, eating healthy, making time for yourself, doing something what you love, and assessing and making sure you do affirmative things like listing out your goals clearly, so that every day you have affirmations, you can actually work towards it, right? A few people have used this book. It's very effective, and I like the way it was written. It's very easy to read. A third one I recommend is for anybody in business or IT in general, The Phoenix Project, a novel about IT, DevOps, and helping business win by Gene Kim, Kevin Burr, and George Spafford. The reason why I recommend that is a lot of people, especially women, are not knowledgeable about the operations day to day from the bottom up, understanding constraints, understanding how to effectively communicate and remove processes that are not needed. It's also a novel, and it's really funny. If you've been working in business long enough, you'll be crying laughing in many of these events. It's really even though it's a novel, you can relate to a lot of it. Kanban board, the Toyota, how they were famous about manufacture. It's really funny too. And then the most recent one I've been listening to, and we've discussed it ourselves, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it, by Chris Voss. Because if you want to get anything, you need to know how to negotiate, especially in the corporate level, or really anybody, right? Anywhere in your life. That's a skill that I wish more people have been taught younger, because that is it's not an easy skill to make, right? Communication's biggest, public speaking is another. I'm giving you actual competencies that I even ask my engineers right now, because the market is very challenging. There's a lot of soft skill training needed. You can have all the technical skill you want, but if you don't know how to negotiate, you're not going anywhere either. So those are some of the books that, at least those four, and take it in small doses. You don't need to read them all at once. You could either do it as Kindle, a hard copy, or audiobook. You can go, just listen while you're doing your chore even. And another one I'll recommend, I know you didn't say books, podcast. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's the Harvard Business Review for women that I would suggest for you to listen to. They have very good topics of all varying types that talks about different issues that we deal with, and they give you examples and discussion topics, right? Besides my podcast, and I know you're working on one eventually soon, but I definitely recommend podcasts because they're good short bits of information that you can enjoy and sometimes laugh a lot about it. The one that I like too on the automation is the Python Bytes. If you're into automation, very good hosts. They have multiple developers that teach school or classes in programming, right? But then they also give me good laughs also from practical experiences. So those are a few nuggets that I'll give you.
Thank you, Maybelyn. I think I loved this. The most about our conversation that I loved is I didn't know where time went because you are so candid and you're so chirpy, and yet your amazing ideas, they just skim through it. It's not like you're just having fun, we're learning. And I love that about you. And thank you so much for taking our time today. And I understand we're all going through so much at the moment, but making our time for community and our people, I think it's great in itself. So thank you so much for that. And like on behalf of the Star and Me team, I want to thank you for your constant support, not just with this Matter Chat, but for being you, being the Wonder Woman that you are. So I really, really appreciate it. It was a lovely time speaking, and I think everyone else also enjoyed it too. And looking forward to any such conversation beyond. I mean, I'm always looking forward to have a chat with my Wonder Woman. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, my Wonder Woman sister. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Let's just drive this change. And the one thing that you told me, self-care and drive this change for our community. That's what we're here for. Lean on to each other.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Bye-bye.